Spring is finally here and it's time to talk dahlias. Now the garden centers are full of bulbs and plants and tubers, and people are itching to get their hands in the ground. And if you're anything like me, you've scoured all the local garden centers and you found some great new dahlia varieties to add to your assortment. Now I'm always being asked what to do now. I have the tubers, what's the next step? So it's a little bit early to plant. We've had a bit of a heat wave, so it gets people all excited about it being time to plant. But we're back to our cooler temperatures and we have a couple weeks before they should go in the ground. But in the meantime, we have to prepare. So there are things we need to do to these tubers to get them ready to plant. So whether you have your tubers in a bag like this, maybe you have some that have come in the mail that you ordered online or from a local dahlia farm and they've arrived, or you're pulling your tubers out of storage, the ones that you dug out last fall. There are some things we need to do to get these tubers ready to go in the ground. So today we're going to learn what we need to do, and then right after that we're going to put some in the ground so you can see what that looks like. Dahlias come in so many different shapes and sizes, from the teeniest tiny little piece like this to large clumps or clusters like this. Now there's a couple of different parts to the actual dahlia. This is the tuber, this is the neck, and at the end is the crown. And it kind of sticks out, or it's a little bit bumpy. Now from the crown, that is where the eye is going to form. And there is a little eye on this one, it's just a little hard to see. So we'll look at this one here. So without a crown, you can't have an eye. And without an eye, you will never have flowers. Because from the eye comes the stem or the stalk, and at the end of that stem or stalk is where the flowers are going to come from. Now, sometimes if you have a clump or a cluster, you will have multiple eyes, like here. We've got many, many eyes. And once you practice a little bit, you could probably take this clump and cut it up into 6 or 8 pieces that would have enough of a crown and would have an eye. And they would look a little bit like this, and they would produce 6 or 8 different plants. Now, there's a couple of things you want to look for when you're shopping for dahlias. One of them is that you want the tuber part to be firm and the neck to be solid and solidly attached to the crown. As you can see, these are all very well attached. There are no broken parts or broken necks. Now this particular dahlia here, although it has lots of tubers, you'll notice there's only one eye here. So I would not go and divide this, because there is only one eye, and I would end up with 7 little bits with no eye, which would not develop at all. Here is... Oh, now the first thing I notice when I open up this box is this guy on top. Look at those eyes. That is great news. So these are the tubers that we got in the mail from our local dahlia farm. So we're just going to turn these over and we're checking to see if there's any rot or anything like that we need to be worried about. This one already has an eye, so that's great. This one also has an eye. Actually, they all do, and they all look great. No rot or anything to be concerned about. So these we're going to place in a tray with moist soil underneath them to encourage root growth and to get those eyes popping some more. Now if we wanted to, we could take a small pot of moist soil and we could put them in 1 per pot to encourage root growth and just to get them going. In fact, that's what I do with most of my dahlias here, and that way when it's time for planting they have a head start. 1 down, and oh goodness, 200 to go. So next I have the tuber that I dug up from the ground last fall, and this one I didn't divide. I usually divide them in the fall. So because I didn't do that, I also didn't snip the little root ends off. I'm going to do that now. Now if I wanted to, I could divide this into a couple of different pieces. I just want to wait for some eyes to grow. Now I can see some already, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this. So there I already have 2 pieces, and I'm going to cut that again. So now I have 3, and I'll probably cut that again. So now I have 4. So the only thing I need to do here is let these dry, this part dry for a couple of days. Then I'm going to place these onto some moist soil as well to encourage some root growth and to see if I can't get these eyes to start popping. And here's an example of a nice, firm, plump tuber. And you can see the skin on it, the outside is smooth. Here you have, it's a little bit shriveled up, but it's still firm. And then over here you have a very shriveled up tuber. And although I still think it can be saved, what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray it with a little bit of water. And that's just going to give it just a little bit of moisture. And this one is not going to, it won't turn into this one. It won't be that nice and plump, but it might give it just enough moisture to keep it alive until I can get it into the ground. Yeah, it's actually a lot easier to plant when you're not standing where I need to plant or sitting where I need to plant. But, well, you are helping. You're being a very big help. Yes, you are. So, and now you're bringing all your friends over. Yeah. Okay. So here we have a bag of dahlia tubers. It was 5 tubers for about $15. When you open up the bag, more than 50% of the time, you'll find many of the tubers are broken. So this is a broken neck, and what that means is nothing is going to grow from that. So you need to just snip it off. And by the time you're done going through a bag, I just find that there's so much waste that in the end I would have been better off spending $10, $15 on one tuber from the dahlia farm, the one I actually really wanted, than having a whole bag of waste. So after I've gone through this whole bag, I've cut off all the broken necks. I've got a huge pile here. None of these will grow into anything. I'm left with 5. I actually do have 5 clumps. I don't know if many of them will be viable. I did find an eye on one of them, but the neck is slightly broken, so I'm not sure if that's going to continue to grow. So really, you have to look really carefully. Try to turn the bag upside down to see if you can see if any of the dahlias are actually in good shape when you're buying. The nice thing about buying the bags is everybody has them and there's a large variety, but if you end up spending the money on something that's not going to produce anything, then it's really kind of a waste of money. A couple more things about bag tubers. If you buy these early in the season, which is usually when the garden centers have them, when you get them home, open up the bags, because these are shipped months before, often months before you see them, and usually they moisten the peat moss or wood chips that's in the bag. And if the garden centers have them stored, or maybe they're in shipping for too long, oftentimes these will rot. So open up the bags when you get home and put the dahlias in a cool, dark place, not freezing, not in the house if you can help it, maybe a heated garage. And you can just put them in a box, cardboard box. And that way they'll stay sleeping, but they'll be in the right temperature and they'll get out of the wet. And the opposite actually happens sometimes. Sometimes they dry out. So if you can control the moisture and the temperature when you get home, you're going to have a better chance of the dahlia sprouting, getting eyes and growing in your garden. So here we have another bag of tubers. These were purchased late in the season, so we're gonna We're gonna cut this open and see what's inside. So this guy started growing in the bag. So he was obviously in really good, the best condition heat-wise and moisture-wise. And it's growing roots already and a great big stem already. It's best for me to actually get this into some soil right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and plant that up like this. Just put some soil on top. And so there's another really good example of why you need to open up these bags as soon as you get them, because you just never know what's going on inside. Are you going to be my helper today? Are you going to help me plant some dahlias? All we have to do is dig a hole. Now we've already amended this soil and we've added lots of chicken manure and horse manure, sheep manure, goat manure. So it's really nice soil. So you want to make sure it's nice and fluffy down below, not all hard and packed. Then you're going to take the dahlia that you've already potted up and, oh, are you going to help? And carefully tip it over. And you'll see there's roots that have already started to grow. So we already have a head start on this. So we're going to put that in the hole. And then we're going to take some soil and just backfill it. Now normally you'd put some kind of a bone meal or something to help with the roots, but I can't use bone meal because the dogs will dig up the flowers, the bulbs, the tubers. We're going to add some water, and that scared the cat away. Then we're going to put a tomato cage over top of it, carefully not stabbing the tuber. Now when it's time to plant just the tubers, I'm going to repeat what I did when I planted the tubers that I had already potted up. The only difference is I'm not going to add water right away. Well, having a little bit of a problem here with the chickens wanting to dig the worms out of the hole, but I'm going to dig a hole that's big enough for this tuber. I'm going to pop it in. And then I'm going to cover it back up. Then I'm going to take a tomato cage and I'm going to put it in very carefully, not stabbing the tuber. Now, if I didn't expect any rain for a while, I might go ahead and water that a little bit, but the soil is damp and it is raining, so I don't need to add any. If I had a tag for this, this is where I would add the tag to the wire, so I would know what kind of dahlia it is, but unfortunately that's a mystery one, so it'll be a surprise when it comes up. I want to take one more look at the eyes because I'm not sure if I explained it very well. They're easy to see the shoots at this time of year, the red, purple, or the green ones. But before they shoot, the eyes are very hard to see. I'm going to point out the eye right there. In a couple of days or maybe a week, that is going to sprout and it's going to look just like those guys there. So I probably have about 10 pails of little bits and pieces after I finished going through and cutting off all the broken necks and all the leftovers from the dahlias that I dug last fall. And I know that I said that nothing would grow from these, but I'm not going to throw these out. Instead, I'm going to give them one last chance in the dahlia graveyard. So here we have the dahlia graveyard. Now everybody has an area in the garden that just never gets planted, or at least I do. And this is the dahlia graveyard. And here you can see the remnants of last year's dahlias that didn't quite make it, but that I threw in here just in case. And I just want to show you, here's a really good example of how sometimes you can be wrong, because right here in the middle of this graveyard is a tuber sprouting right there. And not only did it sprout out of something that I didn't think was going to sprout. But it also made it through the winter because this was just left like this. So I'm going to pull that out, see what it looks like underground, and I'm going to plant it someplace. But for this year, I'm going to take this box and this container and probably 5 or 6 more, and I'm going to basically dump them onto the soil. I don't want to bash them around. I'll cover them with a little bit more soil than that, but now over the next couple of weeks I'm going to keep an eye on these and see if anything starts to sprout. And all it takes is a little tiny piece of the crown for an eye to form. So who knows? Now I've got to dig this guy up here because I'm just dying to know what this guy looks like underneath. So let's see if we can carefully dig him up and see what he looks like. I have no idea how big it's going to be. Oh, look at that. Look at that. That is a lovely, healthy. Now that guy not only survived all of last year, but all of last winter, and he deserves to have a prime spot in my dahlia garden this year. Survivor from the graveyard. You got the prime spot, buddy. Good luck. Okay, that's 45 down. Lots more to go still. Well, I absolutely love dahlias. They're my very favorite flower in the entire garden, and I'm always looking for great new, unique varieties. And there's lots to learn about dahlias. This is just a little bit, but I'm hoping that what you learned today will help you have a successful season in your dahlia garden.